What's up, my fellow Shield Brothers? Shield Brother 6 here with yet another weekly dose of history, and today we'll be talking about, on this February 1st, of the Texas seceding from the Union during the Civil War, February 1st, 1862. Down below you can see the first Texas flag used during the Confederacy, used by the 5th Infantry Regiment of the Texas Volunteers, 1861. On this day, in 1861, Texas becomes the 7th state to secede from the Union when the state convention votes 166 to 8 in favor of the measure. The Texans who voted to leave the Union did so over the objections of their governor, Sam Houston, a staunch Unionist. However, events such as John Brown's raid on the Federal Army at Harper's Ferry in Virginia swayed many Texans to the secessionist cause. And down below you can see the first Confederate flag with the 7 stars for the 7 states. The secession. After Abraham Lincoln's election to the presidency in November 1860, pressure mounted on Houston to call a convention so that Texas could consider secession as a possibility. He did so very reluctantly in January of 1861, and sat in silence on February 1st as the convention voted overwhelmingly in favor of secession. Houston grumbled that Texans were stilling the voice of reason, and he predicted an ignoble defeat for the South. Houston refused to take an oath of allegiance to the Confederacy and was replaced in March 1861 by his lieutenant governor, since he refused to serve under the Confederate flag. The secession expansion. Texas completed the first round of secession. 7 states, including South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas, left the Union before Lincoln even took office. 4 more states, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Arkansas, waited until the formal start of the Civil War, with the April 1861 firing on Fort Sumter at Charleston, South Carolina, before deciding to leave the Union. The remaining slave states, Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri, never mustered the necessary majority of votes for secession, though they wanted to. This is the map of the secession, where you can see in the 4 colors, the different states. The kind of a peachy orange on the very bottom is seceded before fall of Fort Sumter. The orange, the burnt orange, is seceded after fall of Fort Sumter. The pink is the slave states who remained loyal to the Union because they could not get enough votes to leave. And then the green states are the free states or territories of the Union. And then you see the numbers on the states, that's the number 1 to, I believe, 10 of the states in order that seceded first to last. Background. Before the Civil War, the country was divided between North and South. Issues including states' rights and disagreements over tariffs, but the greatest divide was on the issue of slavery, which was legal in the South but had gradually been banned by states north of the Mason-Dixon line, at least for the most part. And though this war was started over slavery, it was not fought over slavery. And what I mean by that is, though these rich white men and states' heads voted to leave because they wanted to keep their slaves and their source of income, the average day man who was fighting, and everyone that died, wasn't fighting for slaves. They couldn't give a damn, honestly, because none of them had ever really owned a slave, and they didn't really care if they would. They were fighting for honor, glory, and their statehood. As the U.S. acquired new territories in the West, bitter debates erupted over whether or not slavery would be permitted in those territories. Southerners feared it was only a matter of time before the addition of new non-slaveholding states, but no new slaveholding states would give control of the government to the abolitionists, and the institution of slavery would be outlawed completely, which again was their source of income. They also resented the notion that a northerner industrialist could establish factories or any other business in the new territories, but agrarian southern slave owners could not move into territories where slavery was prohibited because their slaves would then be free. Nationalism and honor. Nationalism was a powerful force in the early 19th century, with famous spokesmen such as Andrew Jackson and Daniel Webster. While practically all Northerners supported the Union, Southerners were split between those loyal to the entire United States, called Unionists, and loyal primarily to the Southern region and the Confederacy, as I was saying, their statehood and their honor and their Southern family, as they called it. C. Van Woodward said of the latter group, a great slave society had grown up and miraculously flourished in the heart of a thoroughly bourgeois and partly potentially republic. It had renounced its bourgeois origins and elaborated and painfully rationalized its institutional, legal, metaphysical, and religious defenses. When the crisis came, it chose to fight. It provided to be the death struggle of a society which went down in ruins. Speaking of the slaveholders. Perceived insults to to Southern collective honor, as I was saying, included the enormous popularity of Uncle Tom's Cabin, the book, 1852, and the actions of abolitionist John Brown in trying to incite a slave rebellion in 1859 in Harper's Ferry, 1859. While the South moved towards a Southern nationalism, leaders in the North were also becoming more nationally minded, but they rejected any notion of splitting the Union. They wanted a whole Union. The bloody beginning. The Civil War officially began with the Battle of Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was a Union fort in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina. After the Union troops inside the fort refused to vacate it, Confederate forces opened fire on the fort with cannons. It was surrendered without casualty except for 2 U.S. soldiers killed when their cannons exploded while firing a final salute to the flag. That was just bad luck, but led to the bloodiest war in the nation's history. A brother versus brother, awful slaughter. The war. The Civil War was a contest marked by the ferocity and frequency of battle. Over 4 years, 237 named battles were fought, as were many more minor actions and skirmishes, which were often characterized by their bitter intensity and high casualties. In his book, The American Civil War, John Keegan writes that the American Civil War was to prove one of the most ferocious wars ever fought. Without geographic objectives, and no points to which to object progress, the only target for each side was the enemy's soldiers, and how many they could kill. But this war, that's a topic for another video, and I'll continue that some other time. Because the Civil War is such a complex thing, that you can't simply do it justice in one quick video, because there are so many factors and battles, and such a wide thing, a variety of things that go into the Civil War, and the idea and notions and honor of the people at that time, especially in the South. Thank you for watching. As always, please leave a like if you liked, please leave a dislike if you don't like, leave a comment or a suggestion. And before I leave you, I'd like to say one thing about the Civil War. Many people want to remove the Civil War from our history because it's ugly, and no one wants to talk about it. And they think that statues shouldn't be there where the Confederates fought. But to truly understand why you would pit a brother versus brother, the idea of honor and statehood was such a high renown at the time. The whole society was honor bound. So, yes, it was started over slavery, but these men were fighting for more than slaves. The Unions, yes, a lot of the Unions were fighting for slavery to be gone, but these Southern men that are so often ridiculed and mocked and insulted in their afterlife, they were fighting for honor. They were fighting for what they thought was right. They were fighting for their duty, just as any other American soldier would do. And so with that, as always, I'll catch you next time. This has been Shield Brothers with your weekly dose of history.